So hello, today I'm at St Botolph's Church in Beauchamp, Roding in Essex, and I'd like to talk to you about the history of the church and the village itself. So Beauchamp's Roding is a village in Essex. It's surrounded by Essex farmland and the River Roding passes through here. The village is 9 miles from Great Dunmow and 5 miles from Chipping Ongar, so it's fairly isolated. The elevation here is 65 metres or 213 feet in old money. Today's population is unrecorded, but Beauchamp Roding since 1946 has been part of Abbess Beauchamp and Berners Roding parishes, and the combined population is 488. The unusual name comes from the Norman Beauchamp family who lived here and the Saxon Herogonus community. Their leader, Heroda, settled first in Barking, off the River Thames, and following the Barking Creek, the River Roding starts its journey, meandering through the Roding Valley. And it's here that in the 6th century, Heroda and his Saxon tribe settled, in the Rodings. Today, Beauchamp Roding is part of the Rodings, 8 hamlets and villages that bear the name, and these are Abbess Roding, Althorpe Roding, Beauchamp Roding, Berners Roding, High Roding, Leyden Roding, Margaret Roding, and White Roding, which absorbed Morel Roding. And here we have the River Roding itself, most likely where Heroda himself passed by. So we know that by 1066 Beauchamp Roding had a Saxon manor and settlement, with 2 villages, 13 smallholders living here. Now Edsey was the fane at that time. Now by 1086 Norman rule had taken place here, and Aubrey de Vere was the lord of the manor. Now Aubrey was born in Brittany in West Normandy, said to have descended from Charlemagne, the king of the Franks. He is likely to have come over with William the Conqueror and would serve Henry I as a chamberlain. Now interestingly, Aubrey de Vere would found the Abington Abbey called St Mary's Abbey in Oxfordshire. Now at this time Beauchamp's manor had 4 plough teams and 200 pigs. Now above Aubrey was Count Alain of Brittany, also called Alain le Rouge because of his red beard. He was Count Alain's men who fought in the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Count Alain would own an incredible 592 manors after the conquest. That's Today that's 7% of England's entire income. The Count would also fall in love with King Harold's daughter, Gunhild. Now, after Count Alain had died, it's said that Gunhild settled with his brother, Alain the Black. So who were the Beauchamps that gave the village its name? At the conquest of 1066, Hugh de Beauchamp would earn the barony of Bedford, and by William the Conqueror himself. The Conqueror's fourth son would be Henry I and build Bedford's castle, and this would be the home of the Beauchamps family for generations. By 1215, Bedford Castle was in siege by King John himself in the Barons' War, and William de Beauchamp would hold Bedford's castle. When William died in 1260, it would be his son, also William, who would inherit his wealth. And this would include the barony and castle of Bedford and the manor of Beauchamp in Essex. And so the manor would pass from family to family. Robert de Vere was Duke of Ireland and owned the manor in 1387. By 1476, 14-year-old William Gate would be the heir to this manor. In 1526, Sir John Gate was the owner, being connected and supporting Lady Jane Grey. He was executed at the Tower of London on the 22nd of August 1553. It's stated that Sir John was beheaded 3 blows of the axe. I read John was born here in 1504. Some interesting historic buildings still survive. We have in front the Swan Inn, also known as the Two Swans. This was Beauchamp Roding's inn from the year 1600. Today it's a private residence. Now in 1881, George Speller was the publican here and a farmer. Now George had 50 acres of land and employed 4 men. In 1881, the Two Swans in this building lived George, his wife Elizabeth, 7 children and 2 lodgers who were agricultural labourers. Now from the year 1700, Beauchamp Roding had a second inn, the Three Hurdles, which is on the right, and a lane still bears its name. Now I'm taking a calculated guess that this is a place called Shallow Bridge. It's first mentioned in 1262 as Shellyford. In 1503 it was Shallow Brigge, and in 1596 a Beauchamp Roding man was said to be responsible for the bridge repair. Now during the 16th into the 17th centuries, a man called Willingale Doe was responsible for this old bridge. and the parish still bears his name, Willingale. Now in 1777 it was actually called Shallow Bridge, what we have today, and described as a ford through a winding stream. Now we're looking at the Ongar Dunmow Road, very busy road indeed. And it has always been, it seems. It connects the towns of Ongar and Great Dunmow. In 1594, this road was marked on Norden's map of Essex, a very early map. In 1618 and 1720, this road was surveyed. It's always been a most important road for the parish of Beauchamp Roding. During the 18th and 19th centuries, it would become a main stagecoach route between Great Dunmow and London. And this may account why there was two pubs in Beauchamp's Roding. Now during the 18th and 19th centuries, it would become the main... Now stagecoaches, it must be said, were for the elite. Poorer folk would ride the slow goods wagons or just walk down this very road. Now the horses were changed every 9 miles. And it's 9 miles from here to Great Dunmow. Now the post was delivered from Brentwood and Ongar, and the 2 Swans Inn landlord would also be the postmaster. The main post office at that time was in Abbess Roding, several miles away. And we can see where the church is in relation to it. Now one thing you notice as you travel down this road, the Great Dunmow Road literally wraps itself around the church. Now we stand in front of St Botolph's church, and there's a man I'd like to mention who's connected to this church, and it was Rector William Lynch. Now going back to 1564, the rector here was William Lynch, and he was accused of being a drunkard. Now the judge said to him, "He hath not walked so wisely as he should have done." Now he was warned to stay away from the alehouses in Beauchamp's Roding. Rector Lynch had to give 20 shillings to the poor and confess. Now the next Friday, Rector Lynch had to go to Chelmsford wearing a white sheet and holding a white rod. Rector Lynch, it seems, had some previous misdemeanours, for he had missed 4 sermons and he had to face the Archdeacon's court. His crime was, his wife was caught dancing in a common tavern and he had allowed it to happen. How times have changed. Now, St Botolph's Church. St Botolph the man died around 680. He is the patron saint of trade and travellers and farmers. Now, there are 4 churches in the City of London which are dedicated to St Botolph, and these are at Billingsgate, Aldersgate, Bishopsgate and Aldgate. And if you notice, they're all gates from the old Roman wall. Now, it is believed that these churches provided places for incoming travellers at the 4 gates of the City of London. St Botolph himself is supposed to have been buried under the foundations of Inoco, the monastery he built. Gloriously sunny day now. It's recently been raining a lot, so it's eased right off. It's got a nice blue sky. So now we're looking at the church itself. So the walls are of flint rubble mixed with freestone, and dressings are of clunch, which is a hard chalk. Now we're looking at the south porch. It's possibly fairly modern Victorian, built around 1870, but it would have replaced a much earlier one. Now, this was paid for by Anne Powell's family, and you can see a memorial inside saying so. Now, the south doorway itself is early 14th century, and it's got 2 centred arch with moulded jambs, and you can see the clunch stonework. If we pan down, we can see the memorial to benefactor of this porch. Okay, we shall enter this old church. Let's put my cap down. A lovely clunk. Let's just pan around so we can see what the south aspect looks like. So a fairly unusual door in that they use it as a notice board. And I noticed an event's coming up. It's a Beauchamp Road in Christmas market. So all proceeds go to this very church. So we're now standing in the nave, and it measures 35 feet by 22 feet. Now this is 11th century, so it's a very early Norman nave. Now the roof is 15th century. Now we are looking at two tie beams in oak supporting king posts and moulded capital and bases. So 15th century. So if we pan around just by the south doorway, we have the font. I'm going to take a calculate guess at it's around 15th century. Now if we look inside, it looks like it's a full immersion font. And you can see two metal pegs, which were probably used to secure the lid, because in the old times, holy water was stolen. And if you look, you can see it's been, you can see the markings from the mason there. And the drain hole there, you can still see all the work, craftsmanship. Now we're looking at the pews, and these are 18th century, so they're quite new. But it's the rear pews that are quite unusual. If you look at the last three tiers, now you can see they're raised, but if you look closely, there's 3 steps which pull out, most unusual. If we look on the south side, we can see them more clearly. Yeah, and I'm afraid I can't resist having a go. They simply slide back in. So if we pan around, we've got our first window on the north side. So this is a plain window, but it was restored in memory of Anne Loveday, 1997. So now we should move closer towards the chancel, and we have another plaque over here in this like recess. So the plate at the top must have been on an organ at one time, and it's dedicated to Charles Wilkinson, Samuel Sheller, and Sidney Perry, who all died in World War One. Now we should move a little further east towards this window here, which is our first stained glass window. Now we are looking at the 3 archangels, Gabriel, Michael and Raphael. Now, Gabriel is mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's described as the guardian angel of Israel. We move over to Michael the Archangel. Now, Michael is said to be the chief of angels. Michael is mentioned explicitly in the book of Revelation. And lastly, we have Raphael, who is mentioned in the Old Testament. In Jewish tradition, Raphael is believed to have been one of 3 heavenly visitors that met Abraham. If we go a little bit closer, we can see the great detail. And to the side, a sketch of the church here, the Church in the Fields it's called, 1975. So you can see to the side of the window we have a Victorian carved pulpit built on a single stem. And can't resist to walk up this pulpit, the steps. Look at the detail. Detail. Now if we pan around to the south wall, we have 15th century rood stairwell, 2 doors, upper and lower doors. Now having 2 that are complete are very rare actually. You can see the corbel there, the big block of stone coming out, probably supporting the rood balcony. The position between the 2 doors is, I guess it's a piscina for the holy water. So now we face the chancel itself, measuring 22 feet by 17 feet. Now what we see here today is a 15th century chancel replacing a 13th century structure. Now if we look at the arch itself, if we pan up, we can actually see the grooves where the original rood screen was slotted in. Okay, we're now going to enter the chancel itself, and we're going to look at the window on the north side. Now this window is a scene from the Garden of Gethsemane, whose name means oil press, and to this day in Jerusalem a garden of ancient olive trees stand. Now this scene, if I've got it right, shows Jesus with Peter, James and John. Now Jesus asked them to watch him and pray so they would not fall into temptation, but they fell asleep. Twice Jesus had to wake them. Jesus prays to his Father. Now in the left-hand corner, or centre now, we can see the cup of wrath, which he's about to drink. We shall now move towards the high altar area, and no, we shan't. We'll go backwards and we're going to look at the south window. You can see how these windows come alive when the sun shines on them. Now this one says, "He shall feed his flock like shepherd." And this is from Isaiah, said to have lived 750 years or more or less before Jesus was born. Isaiah was the first major prophet in the Hebrew faith. Beautiful colours. Now, as I understand, in the Victorian period, they had a catalogue and you could more or less order whatever you wished from the pictures. It was a very big industry. Now, if we look to the left of the window, we have a religious scene that is in plaster or wood, I'm not sure. And we should pan around to the high altar area and the east window. Now at the base we can see the altar rails. You can see the elaborate carving. It's easy to overlook what's gone into one of these. Even down to a crocketed spire with, looks like an English rose. Juts out, I'm surprised it's not been knocked off. And I've got a feeling the same carpenters made the pulpit. So now we're going to look behind the high altar to the reredos. Now the reredos I've got no information on, but the reredos comes from aureris, meaning behind, and dos from the Latin word dorsum, meaning back. So it's behind back of the altar. And I've got a feeling it's the same carpenter that carved the pulpit and the rails. On the south side, the Ten Commandments. So we shall pan over to the south wall, and we've got a south window. So we can see there's a fair amount going on in this window, and it says, "He shall feed his flock like shepherd." Sorry, got the wrong one. Hold on. Sorry, the left panel is St. Luke. Jesus spoke to the dead young man and made him alive, or live. Jesus gave him back to his mother. And I guess the central panel is where Jesus gave son back to the mother. Now the reason I know this is because I looked up the numbers at the bottom where it says John X1 is 11 and 44. And this is Jesus restores life to Lazarus. And this was the final sign recorded in the Gospel of John. So we can pan up. That must be Lazarus there. So as I understand it, there are two Lazaruses in the Bible. There's a Lazarus and rich man. And then there's Lazarus who was risen from the dead. So you're not getting away with it that easy. There's still a few more windows. So back to the north wall. Just give you a view back to the nave. It's quite an amazing church actually. There's a lot of history in here. Have a look at this window. So this window is fairly faded and I've got no information on it. It could be from cleaning possibly, I'm not sure. But we shall have a look. So this is St Matthew 9. And a central panel. Look at that lovely cloak garment. Wow, great detail. And we're on the third panel. Guess it's still St Matthew 9. And you can see a little damage there. Again, great detail, look at that. So this church is open every day and it's open till 7 o'clock, which is the latest I've seen of any church. Quite amazing. So we shall pan around to the east window. So this window looks to me maybe a different style, so it could be a different artist perhaps. I'm guessing, surmising, I don't know. And there's some panels missing now. And on the right, two panels. The story continues on this side. I'm just panning back over because at the top there's some top panels which I've missed out. Now we shall walk towards the west tower. Now we're standing under the 15th century 10 feet square west tower and there are 4 bells above. And if you see, you can see where the ladder goes straight up vertically. I think these timbers are 15th century. You can actually hear the wind howling above me. There's just one further thing that I forgot to show you. Go back into chancel. There's two stone corbels which are quite famous. So this is an angel holding a shield, and you can see it's had the face knocked off, most likely in the time of Cromwell in the English Civil War, or could be the English Reformation, around 1540. On the opposite side, on the north wall, we've got this face sticking his tongue out. Is it a pig? I'm not sure. I read in the book this has amused children for 500 years. Okay, now we should go outside. Lovely and sunny. So you'll notice there's quite a few yew trees which are quite old, probably about 300 plus years. There's one there on the south east corner, another one here on the southwest corner, and I think there's a further one on the other side. So there are 4 bells here. We have a Miles Gray of 1664. It's likely made by Miles Gray III, who was the last of the Miles Grays, and the family cast over 450 bells. Now Miles was born in Colchester in 1628, making him 36 when these bells were hung. Now his father, Miles Gray II, cast bells in Saffron Walden. Now his grandfather, Miles Gray I, cast bells in Colchester until the siege of Colchester and the Civil War there. In this year 1664, King Charles II is King of England, and very soon we will have King Charles III, 2023. It's most likely the old priest door, and you can see how the stonework is weathered there. Just about make out some detail here, and if we move over to the other side, more or less gone. If you look around the edges, we can see all the old headstones. This must be the original perimeter of the church itself. Now I'd just like to show you this stone, this is quite important. So we are looking at a sarsen stone at Beauchamp Roding. Now legend says that at the time this church was built, the villagers of Beauchamp Roding dragged this stone down the hill, and each morning they found the stone had moved back up the hill. And twice more they tried, and twice more it moved back up. So they built the church where it stands today. Now most interesting, Beauchamp Roding sarsen is positioned on an ancient Neolithic trade route from Grimes Graves in Norfolk to Stonehenge in Wiltshire. Now Grimes Graves is where the mines produced the super hard quality flints used for the carving. And there's so much we don't understand. So it's quite possible this has been a place of worship for many years. Now I should just read you something that was written in 601 AD. Now Pope Gregory instructed the missionaries, the temples of idols in England should not be in any count destroyed, but the temples should be sprinkled with holy water and turned into churches. There's the old north door that's blocked up. Now this was most likely used by the gentry, the lords and ladies of the manor for centuries. We're picking up a gale now. Now we've done a full circle. So St Botolph's church is open for baptisms, weddings and funerals, and it's busy with the community. So I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you very much.